Today, the coming together of what is called the red-green axis is real, and it is increasing, and it's increasingly evident as we look around us, and it works against everything that Benjamin Franklin spoke about and everything that the Constitution guarantees. So to help us move into this now, understanding what this is, I want to bring back in now Dave Bailey. Again, he's an educational consultant. He's an author of a book called Shock and Alarm. Dave, let's go right here to get this established first in this segment. I want you to describe, further define perhaps, the red-green axis, and certainly answer the question, where did it come from? What are the ideologies behind this? And who perhaps are the most identifiable people or organizations which are a part of this alliance? I want to tie in one thing here before you take off on this, if I can. In the last segment, you read a quote that was made a long time ago about border security and the importance, and talking about the harm that was already happening to our country by drugs flowing across the border, enemies coming across. And as you were reading that, I think most people probably said that was last week from Donald Trump. But you made very clear, no, it wasn't. That was from Bill Clinton and the Democrats from a long time ago. And yet now they're taking a totally opposite position. You may want to tie that in, too, to how this whole thing fits into this developing red-green axis.
Thank you, Sam. And I'm glad you brought up that point, because this 180-degree turnaround in position regarding illegal immigration and border security is largely the effect of the Red-Green Alliance. And the easiest way to see that right now is if you, at an international level, if you look at what's happening in Venezuela, there are now countries lining up to ally with the new president who was elected by their legislature to replace Maduro, the dictator, and there are a set of countries that are now lining up to ally with Maduro, their longtime ally in oppression. And the countries that are lining up with Maduro are countries like Cuba, Russia, China, Iran, Turkey, and South Africa, and also Bolivia, Nicaragua, El Salvador, and Suriname. And what you basically have here is the allies of Maduro are the Red-Green Alliance. All of the Islamic nations that have taken a side in this issue have sided with Maduro. Now, ones that are American allies haven't sided one way or another. But those that are not necessarily allies have sided with Maduro. And, of course, you've got communistic regimes, the Nicaragua, you've got the Sandinistas. And so there it is, writ large, the Red-Green Alliance. But along with that, within our own country, you can see the same sorts of things in action. We've got several representatives who are now speaking out in favor of defending Maduro. And these are people like Ro Khanna, represent our brand new female representatives, Ilhan Omar, and also, Alexia Ocasio-Cortez, I believe her name is, AOC, let's keep it easy. And they are actually taking sides with Maduro, defending him, calling for dialogue, which is just a stall tactic to allow him to continue oppressing his people. And so we can see these forces both on an international level and operating with our own country. And the question you've asked is, how do we get to this? What happened that turned things around so drastically? And I'll try to keep it short. It basically comes down to originally Islamist oil money from the Middle East trying to influence the United States. Before the 9/11 attack, they were trying to influence both Republicans and Democrats, and you might think that Republicans would be a more natural ally because they're more conservative, and Islam is a very conservative religion. But after the 9/11 attack, when Republican President Bush went after Afghanistan, invaded Afghanistan, that was, in Muslim eyes, the invasion by an infidel of Islamic territory, and that started really turning things against Republicans. And then it went even further when President Bush invaded Iraq. That was seen as completely unnecessary, not justifiable as, a response to the 9/11 attack. It was seen as an outright aggression. And from that point on, Democrats, who of course wanted to get rid of George Bush, teamed up with Islamists who are now outraged at the invasion of Iraq. And that was the real start of the Red-Green Alliance, which ultimately led to the election of President Obama. And if you remember, his outreach to the Muslim world was one of the most important parts of his administration. His first public address was his address to the Muslim world, which he did from Cairo. And so we can see that, and during his 8 years, that alliance became very deeply entrenched. And in fact, that's part of what we see in what we call sort of the deep state now, trying to get rid of President Trump because he is not a part of the Red-Green Alliance. He is a threat to it.